not just men who can murder and violently attack their partners. This has recently been brought into grim focus with the horrific murder of David Edwards, violently stabbed to death by his wife of just 8 weeks, Sharon. Women murdering men in Britain is still mercifully rare. Last year, 19 men died at the hands of their partners or ex-partners, compared to 81 women. However, the number of women convicted of domestic abuse has more than quadrupled in the last 10 years to almost 5,000 cases in 2014-15. Indeed, according to the male domestic violence charity, the Mankind Initiative, for every 3 people who suffer domestic abuse, 2 will be female and 1 will be male. And the Office for National Statistics claimed that 500,000 men suffered partner abuse in the last year. But the true figure may be even higher. While more women suffer partner abuse than men in Britain, the Mankind Initiative estimate that only 10% of men even tell the police, as opposed to 26% of women. Such statistics shatter the false narratives that only women get battered, men are never victims, and women never attack. But while ending violence against women and girls has rightly been a governmental priority, there is no similar strategy to tackle violence against men and boys. Do these 500,000 battered men and murdered men like David Edwards not matter solely because they had the bad fortune to be born male?
And Martin Daubney joins us now. Welcome to the Daily Politics. Doesn't it make more sense, though, that more resources are being put towards combating violence against women when clearly the statistics show that so many more victims are women?
Absolutely, and that is what's happening right now. I mean, Nicky Morgan announced £80 million 2 weeks ago. Additional funds to combat violence against women and girls, which is amazing. Now, that piece of strategy, I think, is one of the best pieces of legislation in living memory. It's an awesome piece of government, and I think, you know, it just doesn't include men and boys. That's the point of my film. It directly doesn't include men and boys because it was formed to combat violence against women and girls. So at the moment, these men kind of don't have a voice and they don't have anywhere to go, and there's certainly not the funding to do this. This place, I was like yesterday, the Mankind Initiative, it needs 45 grand to keep its phone lines open, and it can't get the money.
Right, well, why doesn't it include an issue? Because clearly the figures also show that men are the victims of either domestic or partner abuse.
Well, yeah, and as Martin said, I think it's absolutely right. The focus is obviously clearly on the larger side of this with women who suffer. But for men as well, we do fund the male advice line. And actually that £80 million, I can say, local authorities who bid into that to provide these services can use that money for male support as well. Yeah,
but how much of that money, like, can you tell me how much of that 80 million quid will be helping men?
But you said none of it, so you sounded like you knew. I mean, do you know that none of it is going to men?
Maybe an official answer, you know, might be clearer, because, I mean, I've looked at the legislation. I think it's nothing, but I'd like to know if it's nothing.
No, it's the money, but local authorities actually derive this work locally.
But it would be their decision then?
It would be for local authorities to look at what they need in their area so they can use it for support for men as well.
Which means they could make the decision not to use it.
But we do also support the male advice line.
Right.
The problem is that hostels for women and children are closing. I think 34 have closed in the last few years. I'm a patron of Leeds Women's Aid, and you know, I know that in Leeds, the hostels there are for women are being turned away every day.
But there are still
because there aren't. So the problem is local authorities have got a reducing budget.
True.
Women's hostels are closing. So I agree there needs to be more money to support men and women.
There are still 4,000 refuge places to protect, and rightly so, to protect abused women. But there are 25 for men.
But you wouldn't want to take away, would you, the money and resources that are being
going to women? And the point is
the
women's ones are closing, and that's why I guess it's hard then to councils to fund yours as well.
You're trying to raise awareness, obviously. I mean, do you think that part of the problem is that men, certainly historically and traditionally, still view it as a stigma to talk about these issues in a way that means it's not cutting through?
Well, of course it is. I mean, you know, men talk about their feelings still is viewed as them being less of a man. But what I want to say is that, you know, strong men reach out for help, because, you know, you can't sort of just die in silence. And what I want to do is to get the message across that yesterday I found out that it's women calling these helplines for men, because the men still feel the stigma and the shame. It's mothers, daughters, sisters, girlfriends, because the men feel disenfranchised and disempowered. But more than that, when you talk about this issue on the streets of Taunton yesterday, I'm here making a movie about domestic violence against men, the women I told that were laughing. It's still seen as some sort of joke. It doesn't really exist, and when it is, we'll sweep it under the carpet. It's like domestic violence against women in the 1970s.
Right,
it's almost like we're in this state of denial. It's time to face up to it.
Do you think you're the right person to actually be sort of campaigning on this? People might say, well, you know, it's all right, he used to edit a lad's mag.
Sure.
You know, is he a man who's just resentful? I'm not saying this is true, obviously, that, you know, that people are finally paying attention, as you say, to the much larger problem of the abuse that women face, and there are more of them. And it will finally get to men, but perhaps not through people like you.
Of course. Look, anybody that has the voice is somebody. You know, it's easy to shoot the messenger. I want people to listen to the message, and mainly men. Men listen to me because of my dubious heritage, OK? You know, young men, lads, listen to people like me, not to politicians. You know, they if they're told by men they kind of admire, or at least they listen to, that it's OK to talk out, I don't care if I get the flack. I just want these men to pick up the phone and get help.
Right. Well, Rachel, do you think it is an issue that needs to be addressed, as well as, of course, the issue about domestic violence towards women?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, and I pay tribute to you to speaking out about these things, because, you know, you're right that people used to brush domestic violence against women under the carpet and just say, you know, oh, you know, like it's just like, you know, normal to, you know, and unacceptable.
And he won't do it again.
Either.
No, it was always because he wouldn't do it again.
Yeah, yeah, or like, you know, he's had a difficult day at work, or he's had a few too many drinks, but, you know, he loves you really, and you don't want to leave, do you?
End it there, because we've just... thank you very much for that.
Thanks for that.
Very interesting film there.